friends and I drove through the night, wishing time take you off my mind. I lost a fight, chasing pride, wishing time take you off my mind. Lights below only ever seem to shine when you're alone. In the backseat where lines are blown, is it too late to know? Only ever meet your gaze.
Were they boys in the band?
Yeah.
In the backseat where lines are blown.
It's like you're making it really good for people.
Like nobody can remember anything. That's like, you gotta say five, so they gotta hear it. But then when you search it,
Yeah, exactly.
like for pages.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a band called Boy, and a lot of times you can search bands on the end. They're like that boy band. You're like fucking yourself.
That's
And if you're like
really good.
if you're like a punk band and like that's your thing, I totally get it. But if you're like, I think the band Boy is like two.
Then you have to spell it with like some like different symbols,
Big
like
boy.
Yeah, like B-O-I.
But then that's even
not-
more
yeah.
fucked up.
oh, you can't still.
Or you gotta do the O with like the
Exactly, or like
Like
an,
Mo.
like an
Yeah.
exclamation mark instead of an I
Yeah.
or something.
something.
with you.
So Yasu.
Yasu.
Yasu,
I'm gonna write that down.
Yasu, Punu, Yasu, Benedict.
I'll put it in the wind. I swear I'm gonna change. Tomorrow's another day. If I am
All right. Well, we'll just jump right into this. What's up, everybody?
with you.
Welcome back to another edition of Between You, Me, and Jose, the Slims Presents podcast. This is episode 19. And I guess this is like 19 times now that I've had to say, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our feed on iTunes.
Do it.
Like our videos, comment, do all that shit because, there's so much shit out there nowadays. It's really hard for anyone to find stuff online. So we are trying to get the word out there about local bands in the Bay Area and interesting artists that you should be paying attention to and listening to what they have to say because it's interesting and checking out their music. So if you would be so kind as to do those things, that will aid us in other people finding out about this. So it'll make our lives a lot easier. So just fucking do it. It's not that hard. It's like you're not committing that much. It's just you're just clicking a button and then it'll just appear. Every time you go to YouTube, every Wednesday when this podcast comes out, that's right, every Wednesday, you'll just have our episodes right there and then it'll be easy and your life will be able to move on much more efficiently.
You will be enriched.
So now that we have that out of the way, and yes, for some of you people commenting on YouTube, I will include a link to subscribe while I'm telling you to subscribe to make it super easy for you. Had some people complain about that. So we're on it. And now on to the episode. We have two members of the band Yasu Benedict here, Lily and James. I'm going to let you guys, I think it's kind of self-explanatory who is Lily and who is James, but
Yeah. I'm Lily.
for the sake, let's introduce yourselves. Tell us what you do in the band.
I am the lead vocalist. I play bass sometimes. I work with the visuals too. Recently, at least.
I'm James. I play guitar in the live band.
Now, are you guys like, is this the core of the band, or just not everybody could make it today?
This is the core. I mean, the whole band is the core of the band, but we usually start things out in the writing process and kind of have the most creative direction out of all the members. But it's definitely a democracy.
Not
Very
diminishing
much so.
anybody.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's for the sake of fairness, let's introduce the spectral members of the band that are here in spirit.
We have AJ Krumholtz, who's a member, Patrick Aguirre,
Drummer.
and then Theo Quimby, member.
And you guys, on your profiles, it states that you guys are originally from upstate New York, and that you've relocated here. Now, are all the members from New York?
At this point, no. I mean, the band formed differently. It formed right when we were out of high school, and then the two other members, which one of the original members is Theo, who's still in the band, and then we had a different member. They were still in high school, and we all grew up together, kindergarten through 12th grade.
Went to the same school.
Yeah,
Wow.
for our whole lives. Really tiny school in upstate New York. So that's how the band started. And then when one of the original members went to college for cello, and then we recruited AJ. And like a few months after recruiting him, we all moved out here together. And then subsequently, Theo was the original drummer. It's kind of confusing, but Theo was the original drummer, and then he went to college, and we got a different drummer, and now Theo's back playing keyboards.
And our different drummer, we met him because his sister was in the class below James and myself at the high school.
So when we say upstate New York, where exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about like Niagara? Are we talking?
No, we're talking like the actual town of Hudson, New York,
Okay.
which is about an hour and a half north of New York City, straight up, like right on the river. It's like this little town that's full of arts, and it's an amazing town. It's really, since we've left, it's really like blown up. A lot of music, a lot of art, a lot of antiques.
So what was behind the decision to move to the Bay Area? I mean, if you're coming from a place that that has sort of a thriving art scene, why come out here?
Well, that thriving art scene is like very established, and it's like mostly artists who are older and already did their thing, and then they're moving from the city. So like you have like Melissa Auftemauer from Smashing Pumpkins and Hole, who lives there.
Recently bought the Basilica and is putting on great shows and art stuff.
Yeah, things
down
in
on the river there.
festivals with Pitchfork and all that. And then you have like band Buchan Gace. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they're awesome, who live there. So they're already all established, and they kind of move up there to do their thing. But
Okay.
if you're trying to, I mean, it's such a small town that after like a year of playing there, like there's not many options.
Okay.
And we didn't want to move to New York City. Nobody wanted to go to New York. San Francisco is cool. It was pretty random.
So it was just like,
It was like, let's do it. Adventure
not
time.
New York, not L.A.
Yeah, definitely
San
not.
Francisco.
Yeah. I mean, we visited out here. Loved it.
I think
Yeah.
we're also a little bit like hopeless romantics as a band in general, and we just fell in love with the idea of the city, as many people do. It's a
Now,
beautiful place.
Like to make things hard on ourselves, too.
Yeah.
So we did that.
you like want the expensive rent. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh, fuck it, we can do it. And
You're
be in a band.
masochists.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Pretty much.
Well, what was there a difference when moving here? I know you guys said you visited before, but was there a difference between what you expected and the reality of it, moving to the Bay Area and trying to make it as a band and being able to support yourselves here? I imagine it's pretty different from, you know, small town upstate New York life.
Yeah, definitely.
Was it a huge adjustment?
Not too bad. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to look like what I imagined is kind of what we're doing now, and it took 2 years of like working really hard to get there, and I think we all kind of imagined it being there because we were pretty spoiled where we came from, you know, like we had all these opportunities and we're playing, you know, great shows, and then coming out here where nobody knows us, and there's so many bands, and you know,
It's just interesting to be isolated for so long, in a certain sense, because if you're working a job and in a band, you don't spend a lot of time socializing.
Yeah.
And in general, like, you know, the people you grew up with, you know, there's a very different connection than people that you just have
Right.
met for the first time.
So have you been able to integrate yourselves into the Bay Area music scene, or do you guys still feel like the
I don't know. I
outsiders?
mean, we're not very good at that.
Okay.
Like we spend most of our time working on the stuff, so we don't. But I think so. I mean, like we've met good, like even just playing Slims, you know, like that. That's definitely being part of the scene, and we have a great
Right.
relationship with Ramona at Bottom of the Hill. So like we're
Uh-huh.
definitely part of the scene, but not part of the scene
Sarah
where like
Sexton from
Sarah
Oaktown
Sexton from
Indie
Oaktown Indie
Mayhem.
Mayhem. She's awesome. Like we have these people that love us, and we really love them, and we work with them a lot. But as far as like other bands, we haven't really been part of a scene. I mean, there's a few people, but I don't know if there is that much of it. Like that, I think that was the biggest shock. Like thinking we'd come out here and it'd be like this group of artists who like all support each other, because that's kind of more what we came from. Like that was the biggest shock, just being like, you gotta like get it yourselves, you know, like you gotta go after it. Like nobody's gonna really hook you up. Nobody's gonna just book you on a show because they like your music, and like you can only draw like 10 people, you know, which is where we were at for a while.
So how, as artists, and coming from this environment where you're coming from an artistic sort of world where there's a lot of other people that do art, and a lot of other people where it's a small enough town where it's kind of like, you know, people are gonna show up because there isn't that much else to do,
And they also know you.
and they know you, and you know they feel kind of obligated, and you know it's a fun time. To coming to a place where, you know, it's more about having to be on that grind and having to, you know, have a presence online and market yourselves and all this kind of stuff.
I think all of that's so important anyway that it's exciting to be in a place that pushes you to work harder than you already do.
How invested are you in that side of things? Like, do you enjoy it? Like, do you feel that is another avenue of creativity?
I mean, I do almost all of that, and I really enjoy it. I envy it at certain times, but I do. Like, I really enjoy it. It's really fun for me. I love the business aspect of it. Like, I love booking shows and being like, oh, I want to do this, and then setting your goals, setting your mind to it, and then doing it, and being able to see, like, direct progress. I really enjoy that part, but it's really shitty at times because that's a lot of time that you should be spent actually creating music, and it's such a different feeling that if I go home from work and, you know, spend 3 hours writing emails, it's like I can't just flip that off and just like write a song. It's like they're so different. So it's like a really fine line. Yeah, I mean, I wish it wasn't so based upon draw and money and all that, you know, like, but I get the reality of it as well. Like, can't operate a venue like this and not make money, you know.
It's true. You guys, in all of your work in your music, and you guys do a lot of video stuff as well, it all seems to be very, like, meticulous in the sense that I get the impression that you guys are sort of in your own little world, sort of sheltering yourselves and working on this stuff, and then sort of wanting to debut it to the world, which is kind of like, I don't know, it seems like we're living in a time where that is not the way you're supposed to do it. Like, you are supposed to be putting yourselves out there all the time. Don't let people forget about you. Like, is it part of your artistic process to, like, kind of seclude yourselves and work on this stuff? Like, I looking at your, I think on Facebook or something like that, you guys were kind of quiet for a while, and then, you came out like, we've, been working on this shit. So, like, we're happy that we're going to get to show people this stuff that we've been working on. Is that part of, do you need that?
I think that's always been a part of how we work in general. We just, I don't know, get into a grind and keep going with it and sort of forget about everything else. But this past, it was maybe 5 months, we were taking a very specific, break, not from playing music, but from trying to push these shows for the exact reason that James was talking about. Like, he wanted to not write emails. He wanted to come home and play music and just think about that. So that's what we were doing. Because we feel like, I don't know, sometimes we get behind on, the creative side because we're just pushing so hard on the, I don't know, the business side, visuals, the presence, the voice,
We'd also,
the shows.
I think, we never have, and we definitely don't look at, we don't look at our size. Like, sometimes we'll realize it and be like, fuck, we're so small. Like, we're such a small band. And, I think that's how I relate to your question, is, that's the difference with us. Like, we don't think about that. Like, in our minds, we're a huge band.
Mm-hmm.
Or, what we're producing, we hold it to a standard that should be at the same level as the things that inspire us, you know? So that's more what it is for me. It's the seclusion. It's all that shit's really important, and there's no denying it, but I've always believed that if what you put into the world is good enough, people are going to find it. And it might take a long time, but product first.
So taking, 5 or 6 months where you aren't, constantly putting yourselves out there and reminding people that you exist and playing shows so that you can keep building the momentum. Did you suffer any consequences from that?
No, we were really wondering what was gonna happen, and Slims is the first show that we played in 6 months, and that was the big question. Are people still gonna be excited? And it seemed like they were more so.
For sure, I got more of a reaction.
Yeah, and a lot of new people, a lot of new fans, and so it kind of reaffirmed our theory, I guess.
So have you? Well, I'll preface this by saying, we pretty much every band that's been on the podcast that's a local up and coming band, I have to ask them about how they fit into this current musical paradigm where everything is very focused on iTunes and Spotify and music videos and these one-off kind of things. Mm-hmm. And you strike me as people who are very interested in creating something kind of cohesive, so how do you place yourselves in this world where what everyone tells you to do is focus on singles, stuff that you can sort of put out there and promote and get a lot of people to pay attention to it, where it seems like you guys, if you had it your way, you would be, probably making an album that is very detailed and has, like a leaflet with lots of images and stuff like that. How do you juggle that, the desire to want to do that and the reality of the fact that there doesn't seem to be a huge place for that these days?
I mean, you can only do like what you. I mean, I understand that, but again, you can only really do what you want to do. And for like, I think for all of us personally, like we still listen to albums. Like the music that we're really drawn to is like, you know, I mean, we don't listen to that much music, but what we do listen to, like we'll just listen to like nonstop, and we'll spend like a year on like 2 albums and just listen to those. So it's like that's still the reality for us, like and how it fits into the, I mean, you can also do it by, I think what's important for us is creating like a story and an overall image, so that those things like singles, and they don't really, you know, you can put out singles, you can put out one-off videos, but if it's all in the same theme, then you can kind of do it in an overarching way.
It's just a long story that just continues.
It's like a TV show versus a movie
yeah,
or something.
Exactly. But we want to do an album for sure. I mean, that's what we're working on.
So where does that stand? Are you recording, or is it just sort of in
demo time, like just writing as much material as possible? And I mean, we have a strong idea of what we want it to be, like theme wise, and even just breaking it down and how we want the songs to go, but all the songs haven't been written.
So I'm going to sidetrack a little bit because you guys just played a show at Slim's recently with Guy Fawkes and Water Strider. And then I see that you have a show coming up. Unfortunately, this episode will air after it happened. But it's kind of crazy. Like, tell me what the deal is with this benefit show in Santa Barbara with Michael McDonald.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
I was looking at this and I'm like,
yeah, what the
fuck is it? Yeah. This is like oddball, you know? But how did this come about? Is someone in the band like the
our
son of
good friend is deeply involved with the group Youth Interactive, who's putting on that benefit, and she loves our music, and I think like Michael McDonald's daughter or something is involved in the group. Just came to, she was like, you guys want to play a show with Michael McDonald? We're like, sure, why not? Fuck it, like, let's get it.
That is so crazy.
I've been telling everyone I'm playing Michael McDonald's block party.
It's so weird. Like, we don't. The only thing I knew of Michael McDonald is that scene in the 40-year-old version where he's just playing on the TVs in the electronics store.
Yeah, we'll burn this place to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. When we confirmed the show, I put like, we have this private Facebook group for the band, and I just put that video clip in there. Like, we were playing a show with Michael McDonald. But other people seem to really like, oh, he was in the Doobie Brothers. I'm like, I don't never listen to the Doobie Brothers, but it'll be fun. It'll be awesome. Santa Barbara's great.
It's a beautiful place.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Maybe we should listen to some Doobie Brothers before.
We should rock out on the ride down.
I think it would be beneficial.
We played there on our tour in the fall, and that was like definitely the most out of control night we had all tour. It got
and the beach.
Got pretty reckless. Yeah.
People were turning up, as they say.
A little too much. Like we still look back and we're like, we're so lucky to have made it out of there. Like,
well, what happened? Paint the scene for us. Like, where were you playing?
Heavy drinking. No, it's
you can't even remember the name of the place.
No, I can't. Oh, it was some bar. It wasn't really about the show. The show was cool.
Before. That was the first time.
Yeah, Lily took it pretty hard. We drank. It was like margarita night. We drank so much.
Yeah. But the beach was beautiful afterward.
We met a lot of people.
Yeah.
I remember like the last thing was like, this guy's like, you guys want to come to my, like, we dropped him off at his house. Like, you guys want to come in and smoke some weed? We were like, fuck no. Right, it was just one of those nights.
We'll barely make it home as it is.
Yeah, it was weird, but it was great. We love Santa Barbara.
Well, I hear their college there has one of the highest STD occurrence rates of all colleges.
I have a good friend who went down.
Bring protection.
Always.
I'll make sure to pack that.
Now, you mentioned touring. Have you where have you guys been playing so far? Did you go on like a West Coast tour or something?
Yeah, we went up, just up to Seattle and then down to LA in the fall.
And how was that for you?
It was good. It was fun.
Well,
It
it
was
was very
like-
fun. It was exactly the way you'd imagine your first tour to be. At least for me.
Yeah.
Like, were you touring with other artists or just,
no, it was
getting on
more
shows?
something like, oh, okay, like this is just something we should do at this point. So we
We
made
had
it
also
happen.
we had made this album happen. We'd been working on for a long time, and we'd released it in the spring,
in the summer.
in the
yeah.
summer, and then we just wanted to make it final, to give it some closure,
Right.
and it felt right. We wanted to travel in a van together mostly, I think.
Yeah, just drive around, play different shows every night, different experiences. It was cool. We just played a lot of random shows, some really good shows. Crashed the van in LA last night.
That was pretty intense.
How did that happen?
Just exhaustion and not paying attention. Just
Yeah.
crossing a lane when I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
It was bad. But it was
You
cool. It
Can't,
was cool.
can't fuck around in LA.
No, that's what we found out. There's no fucking around in LA.
Yeah.
What was it like going and playing all these places where, people didn't necessarily know who you were, or you didn't, I mean, it's that's one of the weird things about the era that we're living in, is that it used to be a band would go on tour and they would have a label that would, go and promote them,
Yeah,
and
totally different
know,
thing.
they would, if they had a decent backing, they would arrive in a town and people would be expecting them. They would go to see the show.
Surprise!
Where,
We're here, guys.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and things can happen on the internet where people from anywhere can be exposed to your music. But a lot of bands, when they're first starting out, it tends to be a hyper local thing where you're focusing on promoting yourself in this geographic location, and when you go outside that area, nobody knows who the fuck you are. So that can be a good thing. You can, wow some people. It could also be, potential for hijinks.
Yeah.
What was it more often hijinks or?
Definitely more often hijinks. I think we also just got used to. It's kind of nice because at a
It
certain
hasn't
point,
been that unfamiliar to us to play shows where it's where you just, I don't know. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of them, but they stay with you.
shows where there's nobody there.
Well, yeah, I don't know, shows where nobody knows who you are, or except for your three good friends who showed up for you. But I feel like the tour was planned, so there was a couple of those, but then there was we played at Theo's college, house party on Halloween night. That was pretty wild, in a basement full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played up at Reed College in a what was that house?
Yeah, like a dorm house.
It was more like a huge open space.
Yeah, there's a
Beautiful
lot of just
old
varying
architecture,
shows.
but nobody was there. It was
Yeah.
just us basically and a few
Yeah.
friends.
But it's cool. It makes it you don't really care so much toward, and then it just becomes more about the music and actually just playing, and whether sometimes people are there and sometimes they're not. And it was just nice to play every night. That's
It
good.
was definitely fun.
See the cities. Being from the East Coast, we'd never been to any of those cities, so that's cool.
Now, were you guys playing as a band, as this same band back in New York?
No, we didn't have the drummer. Yeah, no, the keyboardist was the drummer. We had a cellist for a little while. It's been 3 stages, so there was 2 stages in New York, and then it's been 4 stages, and now there's 2 stages out here.
Super complicated, James.
Yeah, it's really complicated.
Yeah. We've had a friend that left and a few friends join. And then our drummer went off to college and became our keyboardist when he came back.
So why, you mentioned that you didn't want to move to New York. What was the reason behind not wanting to move to New York? Because, conceive of, there's a lot more people in New York. You
A
could
lot more of a
conceive
music
it,
scene
a
too,
lot more of a
actually.
music scene. You could conceivably get more notice just going a shorter distance to New York.
Conceivably.
Why not?
I don't know. It's kind of like the obvious thing to do for everybody from where we're from. It's like you moved to New York, like, which it could have been great, but none of us actually really like the city that much.
I mean, it's great to be there. I don't.
Yeah, we don't want to live
Our
there.
climate. I mean, the climate of upstate New York plus being in the city can be intense.
In what way?
Very hot in the summer, very cold in the winter.
I see.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that as much out here.
No, it's just always cold out here.
It's also just like
Great.
it's too close to home. It'd be too
Yeah.
easy to just always like, like we had to like really do it if we were gonna do
Yeah.
it, and we're still kind of in that. Like you can't just run back home and like make everything easy. It's like you're
We
3,000
needed to
miles
seclude
away.
ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of.
I mean,
And
it
to
sounds
start
like
fresh,
you kind of have to put up some challenges for yourself to overcome, or else it doesn't feel
Expand
real.
your horizons.
Yeah, challenges are good.
It just changes your mindset too. Like you're not stuck in the same mindset that you grew up in.
How has being out here on the West Coast changed your, not even your music, but how has it changed you in terms of the way you see things, your worldview? Has it?
Not really. I mean, it's hard to tell because when we moved out here, we were so young that it feels
We've
like
been changing a lot, but
Yeah.
who knows? Like,
it would have just
of
happened
course,
anyways.
it's influenced by where we are. Of course, like
I guess so. I don't think it's like changed us in a positive way being in this city necessarily. Maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to tell.
it's hard to tell because we want to be in the country so badly. But I don't know. I think, of course, it's had good and bad effects on us.
I think you also just find no matter where you are, it's like people are pretty much the same. Like you have your good people, you have your talented people, you have your lazy people. People are just the same. It's like, and then you got to find where you fit into it, and it doesn't really change that much.
I don't know. I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about East Coast and West Coast people and how different they are.
Yeah, but that never really affected us. Like we
That's
we
true.
never really fell into the West Coast thing. Like nobody says hella.
Well-
like we still get angry when we drive and shit. Like we're still very East Coast.
I think the biggest thing is that it's allowed us to be more like secluded again. Like we're the outsiders in a
Yeah.
certain sense, and we kind of like it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Why?
But then everybody's so nice too that it's nice to be around.
Yeah, people are pretty nice. That's definitely true.
What about that feeling is appealing to you? And meaning, like, I don't know. I'm like a stoner, so I often like sit around and just like think about why I behave in certain ways, or like why I'm
It's
attracted
good.
to certain
It's good to
things.
think about why.
Have you thought about why? Like, what about your personalities sort of pushes you towards this way of doing things, where you feel like you have to kind of like impose barriers for yourself? You have to make it hard. You have to sort of,
East Coast mentality.
Is it?
I don't know. I think so, somewhat. I don't know if it's making it hard for yourself, but there's also just the fact, like, you have to do that if you want to really create, like, give the proper amount of time to what you're doing. So, like,
Right.
a lot of it comes from you can only, like, have friends and turn them down to hang out so many times before they kind of, like, stop including you. And then once that happens, it's kind of like, it's kind of shitty, but at the same time, you're like, that's exactly what I wanted. So now I can, like, just focus on what I want to do.
Mostly it's the need to focus, like,
Mhm.
on certain specific things.
Takes a
And
lot
a
of
lack
time.
of
Yeah, you
time.
pay the price, but, like, there's no point in doing this or spending any time unless you really want to, like, we never saw this band as being something, like, really small. we saw it being, and we still do, like being something pretty big, you know, whatever that means or turns into. But
Yeah.
so that's kind of it. It's not like let's like brood and like make this dark music. It's just like
It
we need
definitely
to
comes
do this,
across
so.
like that sometimes too, but
Yeah, people always think we're pretty dark, but
Coming from an artistic community, did you have family members that, you know, were musicians or anything like that? Like this will be different obviously for each of you, but like what sent you down the path of using music as a way to express yourself?
I was always singing. Like my dad would always sing, my grandmother would always sing. It was just part of daily life, kind of. And then the schools that we went to were very heavy in the arts. I always wanted to be, you know, a painter, a photographer, an actress, a musician, a singer. I always wanted to have a band.
Were those things nurtured by your family?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, big supporters.
yeah, our school is K through 12, 300 people. It's a Waldorf school. Not many people know what that is, but it's like just a school based upon pretty much one man's philosophy who lived in the early 1900s, like this German philosopher. And it's just incredibly heavy on the arts and no tests, no grades. It's just all about like nurturing the person. So it was definitely part of it. My mom was a music teacher. So it's just like it's part of it, you know. You sing in school all the time. You do plays. It's just art heavy. I don't think there's really not many. I don't think any like kids graduate from that school and are like, I'm gonna be an accountant or some shit, you know.
Yeah.
Like you kind of just go into the arts because it's the only thing you really know from the beginning. If you've been there the whole time.
I know plenty of people who are more interested in like the sciences there, actually, to be honest.
I guess that's true.
And like agriculture, a lot of people interested in that.
Yeah.
Like sustainable living and
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're all that different when you get
Right.
down to it.
artistic
you know?
personalities expressing themselves differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being able to look at the world around you and appreciate the beauty and the simplicity and in the complexity of the things that you think are just very simple,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people kind of seem to think that science and art are very different things, and that, you know, you always hear like left brain, right brain, like,
Right.
you know, they're two different parts, you know, and people that are good at one aren't necessarily good at the other. And that can be true. But I think there's like a huge cross section where these two things are essentially the same. Like the
Yeah.
goal of what science should be is trying to understand and appreciate the complexity that has developed in our universe, and sort of as a way of sort of giving respect and praise to the amazingness of that,
Yeah.
by trying to understand it. And I think a lot of people sort of think of science as trying to master those things, which to me, I have, if anyone listens to the podcast, I rant about science sometimes, like in terms of people having like a very rigid scientific view of the world, a very like materialistic view of the world. Because I think that is not indicative of the reality, that science and art are two sides of the same thing. You know, one is praising by taking part and trying to emulate the things that the universe does naturally, you know, using the concept of sound to convey emotions. And, you know, these are all things that exist in the real world, sound waves are out there, they exist. Bugs make noises, trees make noises, all this stuff, and we're simply sort of making a conscious effort to take this phenomenon and, pay homage to it.
Create with it.
Yeah, and to me that's very, very similar to the idea of trying to appreciate the complexity of nature by seeking to understand, what led up to this and what happens when you do this and what happens when you do that.
Totally. I mean, the philosopher who's started all these schools, Rudolf Steiner, I mean, the philosophy is called anthroposophy, but it's also known, like, his big thing is it's known as spiritual science.
Okay.
So it's basically that. It's like, it's spiritual and then science, which combines the two.
What, when you're writing songs, what are you trying to convey? We just talked about the idea of sort of like paying homage to the wonder of things with music and with sound. Like, what are you drawn to in terms of like what you're trying to, hint at or give the person the, the feeling of inside? What are the intriguing things to you?
Oh no, I don't think
It's a hard question.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Because it's very wide, and yet it's something that we think about a lot, and that will change, But and then there's some pretty steady themes that are unconscious in a certain sense that I always return to. But I think that's something that also excites us about writing an album, because we want to collect all the unconscious things and, make a conscious decision on what the album will be about. Like, what is the story that we're writing? And it's still out there in a certain sense, but in general, like, for me, I'm inspired by conflicts in a certain way, like conflicting things, not necessarily even just like conflicts, like something that's harsh and then something that's smooth, like something that's beautiful and something that's hard to take.
Right.
I like those. Nature in general is always meaningful to me. Natural beauty.
Where do you think that comes from in your life? Like, being able to, I feel like people are drawn to certain things, and these things represent something significant to them. They have a meaning that maybe they don't even necessarily, they've never put it into words or thought about it in a way to make it anything but an abstraction. But, what do you think is drawing you to this idea of like juxtaposition and,
It's always been the most exciting thing. I think I'm a very, like, I picture things mostly, like, in general. So I picture, like, the juxtaposition, and it's exciting to me to see that. I don't know. That's the main reason. But I've mostly spent time thinking about what I like and not necessarily why I like it.
What, do you want, when you put yourself out there, and anytime you create art and show it to someone, you're putting yourself out there in a way
Absolutely.
that is very stressful sometimes. What do you hope people are seeing? Are you, because a lot of artists, they're not comfortable letting people know who they really are.
For sure, it took a long time. Also, when I was younger, I loved to perform in plays, but I always had a hard time performing on stage, playing the songs that I would write, and it's because it was so personal. But I think spending enough time doing it and spending enough time creating music, you realize that you're also creating a show, and that you have control over that, and that it's something that you get to write. I don't know.
I think we're also like kind of fascinated with there's certain people and certain artists like all across the map who can kind of like sum up this universal feeling and encapsulate it and then put it perfectly so that it's like, you know, like a 14-year-old kid in like Nebraska can understand this like one line or like this image perfectly. Like he can relate to it perfectly and we can relate to it perfectly. And at the same time, they're doing it in an incredibly creative way and they're not sacrificing anything and they're not selling out. And yet it's like this very universal thing. I mean, I'm fascinated with that. Like, how do you, you know, to do that? Because to me, that's the ultimate. Like, you don't make music to, you know, like, or we don't make, we don't make music just to like, you know, we don't make like hardcore metal or any of this shit. It's like, we're trying to be universal in that sense. Like, how to sum something up that can affect so many people in a similar way, you know.
So maybe it's this desire to connect and in a show, like what we truly want most for people is to receive the energy that we're putting off, which is, you know, can be electric if it meets up properly.
Yeah, it's very interesting that this phenomenon that you talk about where, and everyone might even not be taking the same thing away, you know,
Always,
but for them it
course.
resonates. And a lot of times I'll discuss with young bands on this podcast the concept of like, what is the value of art in our society? Because we have become a society where we don't value art as a whole, you know.
Yeah.
Artists are seen as lazy. They're seen as not wanting to, you know, get a real job, you know. But the reality is that art is one of the most profound things that we have. And it's one of the few things that actually changes things. And that's can be as subtle as someone, you know, a 14-year-old kid in Nebraska hearing someone phrase something a certain way, make a certain metaphor that never occurred to them before, that they never drew that parallel. And it boils it down to a way where it resonates with them and they are able to internalize it, and therefore it's creating a change within themselves. And one of the things as I've gotten older, I've realized that you can't tell somebody something and have them, you know, really accept it. They have to be able to internalize it themselves for it really to make an impact. And so when we talk a lot about things like politics and, you know, culture and all these things, the tendency for people is to want to take that approach where you're telling people how it's supposed to be or telling people what
Seems
you know,
faster.
Yeah, but in reality it's totally counterproductive, because they're not going to do anything, they're not going to change until it hits them in their, you know, where it matters to them.
Sure.
And art is one of the few things that we have that is able to boil these things down into a way that allows people to internalize them, you know, with the aid of someone else.
That's very true.
So, I mean, to me, that's really fascinating, and how our society came to think of artists in the way that they do. You know, we obviously live in a commodified society.
Wonder if it has something to do with stardom in certain senses.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, like, maybe I have no
Like
idea
we've thought of artists as people who want to be famous.
Well, I mean,
or-
like, you see certain, well, I mean, a lot of people, you think of artists, like professional artists, obviously they're famous because they're successful already, and anyone who's not famous is, like, not a professional artist. I mean, in a certain very
Right,
general
right.
mindset. But then you see famous people and they're not doing very much, like,
Right.
because they're well off, you know, they don't have to, it
Right.
doesn't have to be visible.
So we've kind of associated the the idea of fame with the idea of success as an artistic
I'm not sure
person
where I
in a
was
way.
going with that. I'm kind of lost now. Now that I think of it.
Well,
Well, you
you'll
see a
find
lot
your
of
way back.
artists who seem like they're just, chilling,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that part doesn't really matter. It's like, it can be frustrating sometimes. It's like, because unless you're doing it, nobody realizes the amount of work that goes into it. It's like we
It's
all
true.
work
We didn't
second
realize
jobs,
how much work was gonna.
it's so
I
much
mean,
time and it's so much effort and so much thought and like, yeah, you're just tired all the time. Like you don't ever have time off. Like ever,
Right.
your days off are not days off. You arguably work harder on your days off of work. But that, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like you don't do it for that. I mean, you do it hopefully that you can just show the results. Nobody wants to be part of that. Nobody wants to
Right.
be like, oh yeah, you worked so hard. Like they just want to see what you do. They just want to
Yeah.
experience the result.
I think that's definitely true, but I think that's a slippery slope as well, because when you don't see what goes into it,
They don't value it.
you don't value it. Exactly.
For sure.
You know, and that's what our culture has become in a lot of ways. People expect things just to be served up to them.
maybe that's pure volume of music right now.
But it's like, well, yeah, but it's
And
all,
how easy it could be to write a pretty close to a pop song if you wanted to.
yeah, but that's kind of what I was talking about with there's these certain artists who can encapsulate that thing, and it makes it exciting because at a certain point there is this line where if you can do that and if you can really be good and like really penetrate exactly what you want to do, I think success will come. And when you can do that, it's not black and white. It's like people will pay. People will come to, Arcade Fire sell out the Shoreline Arena.
Yeah.
Like, look at the shit they're doing. They have people in, like, mirror suits and shit. It's
Yeah.
fucking weird. And they can sell out huge arenas throughout the country. It's like,
They're wearing
because they
bobbleheads.
can connect in a very pure form. So, like, that's what I mean. It's like, I think it's just kind of like a loser's mentality to look at it that way. Be like, man, I work so hard and, like, nobody... It's like, well, then work harder and find a way to, like,
It's
to
hard to
connect to more
accomplish
people,
one's
or
dream
be
anyway.
okay with exactly what you're doing and be very okay with, I am creating this art that I am incredibly happy with, and I'm doing it for myself before other people. And that's not what we do. Like, we do it for ourselves, but it's very much for other people. So we need that. We want to connect to as many people as possible. But just to be like, yeah, I work really hard and nobody gives a shit. It's like, well, work harder.
Yeah.
I think that's also, I mean, not to hate on other people, but like, or other bands, or even, it's like, they can work harder, I think you see a lot of these people that are successful and really doing it. Like, I don't think they even, just like other people don't understand how hard we work, I don't think a lot of bands our size and a lot of people in our situation understand how hard these other people work
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
16 hours days, like in the studio, all this shit, like just working, just no
Yeah.
no bullshit.
I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you want, as an artist or a performer, obviously you want it to seem flawless, and you want it to seem like it just came out of nowhere like that, even though you're working really hard on it. But at the same time, where the reality of that, it's like when you think about something like, the humanity's effect on the climate through our technology, like that in doing this one thing and, doing it well, we're having an impact on something else that we're not even really conceiving, and it's a byproduct that you don't realize until later. But one of the byproducts of this, wanting everything to seem like, effortless, is that people think it is effortless, and they sort of lose the admiration for the amount of skill and dedication and work that it takes to achieve that state. So it's like it's this weird sort of, what is more important in the end,
I mean, yeah, well, I think that will take care of itself eventually. Like, it can only go so far, you know? Like, you can only not make money for so long, and then you'll stop making art, and then if enough people are not making money and enough people stop making art, like, I think that will always work itself out, you know? There'll always be ways to do that, to have the work pay off. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I don't know.
What is...
But you also don't do it for... I don't know. You don't do it for... I don't think anybody starts for, like, for money or for fame, or very few people do.
Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. There are people out there that definitely do.
Yeah,
or whatever it is, you know, whatever
but
the incentive
it's so
is
obvious.
for them.
Those people are like, you know, no, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, everybody's doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
Is the thing is like, and whatever that reason is, whether it's like validation, whether it's acceptance, or whether it's, you know, money,
yeah,
chicks,
yeah,
you know, whatever the reason people do it,
for sure.
you know, they're doing it for a reason, you know.
Absolutely.
A lot of, and there are artists that will be doing it regardless, you know, just because there's something inside of them that they just have to exercise in that way. But I think that's kind of like a smaller percentage, you know.
Totally.
If people weren't getting the incentive out of it, a lot of them, you know, would eventually give up and do, you know, because they're not getting that reinforcement that they need.
Totally.
But, you know,
that is a sad thing, I think. I think art is good for people in general.
Yeah.
So it's sad when they give it up.
Yeah, at the same time, though, it's like you can't... I mean, it's a reality. Like, you know, we even think about it. It's like, at what point do you...
I'm just saying, like
pull the
instead
plug, you
of,
know?
like, I don't know. I'm saying, like, playing guitar, like, in your town band once a week. Like, if that makes you happy, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. If that makes you happy, that's tight. I wish that
would make you happy.
Yeah, I wish it could be that simple, for sure. But that...
I'm just saying that, yeah.
That's arguably more, like, that's cool, too. Like, if that makes somebody happy, maybe they have a pure relationship to the music. Like, maybe our relationship to it is, like, totally fucked up, you know? Like, that could be, too. I mean... They're just doing it for the love of playing guitar. We're doing it for all sorts of reasons, you know?
For pussy.
For pussy, money, and weed.
But... I don't know.
It down.
It's hard to like talk about things like this because it's not something that we generally have a conversation about.
We talk about it a lot.
I mean, in terms of like, you know, people having a sort of semi-public conversation about this in a way where like other people are listening and,
other
digesting.
people are listening?
Like 3 or 4 people are probably listening. But I don't know, I think it's important to actually talk about stuff like this because you're right. Art has, aside from the value that art has for people like consuming art, in the fact that, you know, in consuming art you can gain knowledge and understanding and whatnot. In creating art, you are sort of, it's like you're like I was saying earlier about how you guys, it seems like you have to kind of put a roadblock so that you can overcome it. That's, to me, that's really an important thing for people to have a goal and go through with it, and then in the end, you know, either be happy with the way you did it or not happy with it and feel like I got to do it again. Or, you know, I got to keep going at this until I can, you know, and that, to me, that's a very healthy thing. And in this world where we're boiling art down to how well it, you know, how well it's going to do on a market, you know, we're totally forgetting about that side of things. And
absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's crazy for our culture that we think in this way.
I'd say it seems to be connected also to the way communities are not, you know, there's not a lot of community in certain in our culture in general, like small town community, like
Yeah.
like a town band idea. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Or like understanding again where things come from, like
Yeah.
how that song was created, like how that
Right, you're just gonna stay home and watch something on the TV instead
Right.
of like, I don't know.
or even, you know, like we were talking about on the previous episode with Rin Tin Tiger, the idea of like the internet generation where, you know, 2 seconds and it's right in front of you, like whatever you want right there.
And it's so addictive.
And you don't see what happens behind the scenes, like
Yeah.
you didn't put any skin into that game, so to speak. And that goes to things like, you know, food, like
Exactly.
who grew that? How did it get here? Like what was used to, you know, what pesticides were used on it? How long was it on a truck before it got to the store, and how long did it sit?
Like your question earlier, like, well, why, you know, that's one of the main reasons why we feel it's important to not to take time off, but to like create these projects and put them out, because it's letting people know that, like, if you're just, that's the whole problem. People are just flooding like shit with like information, like, here's this song, here's and then it's like at a certain point people, it becomes the norm and people don't give a shit anymore, because if you're seeing like the same thing or hearing the same thing every day, we're all, you know, we're all affected by that. But if you take time and be like, this is something that we spent 6 months working on, and whether it's just as good or just as bad or whatever it is, like, we spent this much time working on it, like, we think it warrants 3 minutes of your fucking day.
Yeah.
And it's important, I think it's important for us to do that and to like fully penetrate something and then deliver it to them, you know, instead of just always being part of the conveyor belt of like, you know, you go down your fucking Facebook thing and it's like how many pieces of media are on there a day, or like Twitter, you know, it's just so fucking saturated. And that's the only way we can think of being our size and just being able to do that, you know, and kind of just like, wait, just stop a little bit, like, not releasing songs all the time, not releasing all that, you know.
What let's get a little like philosophical here. Like, what if you had the power to remake the way we do things, you know, like what
How long do we have?
well, I mean, what are some of the things that you would start to change? And I'm not just saying like, you know, about the music industry per se, but
I would
like,
get rid of smartphones.
okay, that's one thing, you know, and why?
Immediately. I think
you know?
about that all the time. I don't have a smartphone.
And
Not
you
yet.
know, why get rid of it, you know?
Because
I wanna
people aren't
go down this
fucking
rabbit
even
hole.
aware of like not having one gives me this perspective that is absolutely insane. Like just taking the N every day to work, you know, like the N Judah, or
Yeah.
just walking around this, especially San Francisco, down here in Soho,
yeah.
where we are. Like, it gives me this perspective because I'm not like this. Like people, I'm surprised like people don't die all the time from getting hit by cars, like all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
they're connected constantly. They're just head down. It's like there's a fucking world out there. Like, why don't you partake in it? It's not the real world.
Yeah.
You know? It's not. It even touches to like people coming to shows. Like, it's not even really necessary to go to shows. That's why like we're so grateful when people come out, you know, like it means a lot. It almost means more nowadays. Like, wow, you actually paid for a ticket and you came to see us live. Like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It means so much. Because most people feel like they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's just comfortable. They can fucking sit on their phone and like skip through the video and be like, cool, I watched that. So
Yeah.
you didn't partake in it. You're not partaking in the world.
Yeah.
You're not partaking in like your walk down the street. You're really not partaking in anything or like
Yeah.
penetrating anything. So I'd get rid of smartphones.
Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who was asking me once, like, you know, can you teach me how to draw? I suck at drawing. Like, can you teach me some shit? And I'm like, well, the only thing I can teach you is how to look at stuff. You know, like drawing, the like drawing, you just, if you keep drawing, you'll get more confident in your line work and all that stuff, and you'll, understand what shading techniques work best for you. All that shit will come, but the hardest part and what makes most people not able to draw is that they don't know how to see. And they are looking at something, and seeing what the representational quality of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll look at this microphone and just say it's a microphone. And you're not really even looking at it. You're just glancing at it and saying it's a microphone, and then in your brain, you already know, so there's no reason to keep looking. Mm-hmm. But if you are trying to recreate this microphone, you have to pay a lot more attention to it. You have to and in doing that, you understand it more. You have more of a grasp on what it is, and an appreciation of all the intricacies that are in this, one little thing.
Yeah.
I don't even think I don't think we've seen the half of it even, like, even to relate it to music or, like, to what you create. It's like, I think the main reason why people are just sucked into this is to avoid all these things, like to avoid what's actually right there, or like all the things, you're thinking or you don't want to deal with. Like, at least that's a large reason why I can get sucked into it. It's very easy. It's wonderful. Like, but from like a creating standpoint, it's like, when does it end? Like, are we going to reach a point where they can't even fucking relate to what we're trying to put across in our songs or in our imagery or anything? Like,
yeah.
Is it going to get that bad? I don't know. I mean, I know specifically here it's horrible, but it's just frightening. It's like, how do you pull people out of that? And you can't, because we're not. If we were much larger, and that's the idea, is to get much larger, then you have that much more of an impact, and you can start to do that. But
yeah.
Right now you can't. In order to get there, you have to be part of it,
Yeah, and that's the catch-22, is that, you need that for them to know about you.
It's the only way anymore.
But, at the same time, it's...
Oh my gosh, I'm so addicted to Instagram. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But to me, Instagram is like the least...
exactly. That's why I allow myself to be addicted to it.
There's still artistry on Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah, Instagram's great. Yeah.
There's a lot of, chicks taking pictures of their,
different body parts.
And
selfies.
Yeah, their tattoos and all that kind of stuff.
Great things.
I think a lot of bands our size are seeing the direct, like even ourselves, the direct downfall of that exactly. Like, a lot of bands like us spent years fostering our Facebook following and put all our effort into it, and then it's like a fucking slap in the face. It's like, oh yeah, Facebook is this huge corporation that needs to make money. They're not going to show your posts to anybody anymore. Yeah,
we go through that as a venue.
Absolutely,
it's ridiculous. But it's like, what did you expect?
Yeah, I mean, we all want to think that technology is going to be this thing that kind of, does these great things for us in terms of bringing people together and connecting and allowing people to freely express themselves.
And it does.
It does, for sure. And it has that power.
Totally.
And at every turn, we just, like, fuck ourselves out of the power. Like, I don't know if people are... I know there's a segment of people out there that are afraid of that power because it threatens their own power, their own level of control over people.
Like Anonymous and shit, like the stuff that they do, just showing how fragile the whole system even is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, and a lot of people, when you talk to them about, like, well, why is marijuana still, illegal federally? And I think most people in the U.S. now know that smoking weed is not going to fucking kill you. Yeah. You're not going to turn into a crazy person. Yeah. All the, like, the propaganda that was put out there for generations, people our age and younger, they know that that's bullshit.
Totally.
But why is it still have this stigma? And, what a lot of people boil it down to is that if a lot of people were getting stoned, they would start questioning things. You can't help but, like, your mind wanders and you, like, make these random connections, and you're like, holy shit, I just understood something that like didn't make sense to me before. And if you had that on a mass scale, you know, it would really start to change things. And that's
conspiracies.
marijuana brings down the capitalist system.
That'd be great.
Well, it's scary for people, you know. It's scary to.
You think that's what's scaring them? Up on
I mean, I think
Capitol
that
Hill?
I think there's a certain certain people who.
I mean, I know
that's
Barack
real.
Obama understands marijuana. Listen to that. Or
He
he was.
Somewhat.
He was
He was
when he was a teenager.
he was fronting like he wasn't going to do anything about it, and then
It's also just this
all
thing
these
where it's
people
like,
do.
well, especially out here, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. I think that
yeah,
if it was like really hard to get weed, like, you know, there'd be an uproar. But like,
yeah.
does it really matter if it's legal?
I don't know, but it's this
It
It's
matters
a
in a
idea.
curious.
Like,
It's a
cultural
very
sense, but
curious
not-
Right.
thought.
Not
yeah.
in a personal sense.
Because
yeah.
where we
Yeah.
come from, it's definitely stigmatized to have weed. Like,
oh yeah,
definitely. And out here,
it's harder to get it,
I mean,
It's shitty.
harder to get good weed.
Yeah,
oh, it's so much.
but it's all
harder.
changing. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like in the Midwest, that weed's pretty expensive there.
Yeah, Midwest. Yeah, we drove through some interesting spots.
Yeah.
But I mean, things like that, where it's like, you know, we know that that the things that we were told are not right. That in a lot of respects they're straight up lies and fabrications that can only be intentionally, you know, created for a purpose.
I wonder though if it was created for like people afraid of. I sort of feel like, I don't know. I can imagine more like mothers and like very Christian people who are just afraid of drugs in general, you know,
Yeah.
thinking it's just very wrong.
It's just weird to me. I don't really think about it too much, but like, it's just weird to me that the evidence is just like you can't. It's irrefutable,
Right.
and like people, just because it's a law, people will
Yeah.
just like stick to it. It's so weird. Like alcohol is way
It's
more
true.
dangerous. Cigarettes are
So
proven
true.
to just
It's weird.
kill people,
Yeah.
but it's legal, so it's like, oh, it's cool,
It's no
whatever.
big
Like
deal.
there's bars everywhere, you know. Like yeah, drink it up, smoke, like go buy a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
But weed
It's
is
true.
illegal.
People will
so-
still make fun of you, like a little bit, like
Yeah, it's just weird. I don't know.
it's
Yeah.
different. Like, oh yeah, you're being badass. You're smoking on the street.
Well, it's kind of what you brought up is kind of interesting because there is this fear with very conservative people who think that doing these things are going to, you know,
That's where I see
Harm
the
you
fear
somehow,
coming from
like-
mostly. Yeah.
not even physically, but like
Exactly.
it'll send you down a path, like you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
etc. But the crazy thing to me is that before I really started smoking weed like regularly, I was like atheist. I like very staunchly atheist. And the more that I sort of was high and like, I don't know, it makes you appreciate things. It makes you draw connections that you didn't before. It makes you think about things without the same kind of filters that you had.
Yeah.
And one of the results of that was I consider myself more agnostic now than atheist, because in having all these experiences where I'm forced to question what I actually know and what I don't know, what is possible, and you know, expanding the boundaries of what you think is, you know, constituting reality, it made me go, well, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, maybe there is something out there. Like, you know, I don't organized religion, I am not into at all, but you know, this idea that there is something more than just the material world
For sure.
is, I mean, that literally came from me smoking weed. So you would think that, you know, if you're a very religious person and you just want your kids to like,
Well, there definitely
you know?
have been religions that, well, not religions, but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
cultures and religions that embrace marijuana.
yeah, and other
Rastafarian.
drugs, you know, psychedelic experiences,
Yeah.
You know, for
I wonder what it is about the Christians that don't like the weed.
I personally don't like weed.
That's not true.
Well, I don't like smoking it that much.
Well, that's
I'll force
different.
myself to smoke it, but just to
Take your medicine.
have the experience. But
Okay.
it doesn't really do anything. Just makes me feel weird, paranoid.
maybe you're not smoking the right weed. Well, it's also
Like,
like
give me some of that agnostic weed.
I mean, to me,
Everyone has
taking
different
drugs
responses,
it
yeah.
should be like more like a ritual. Like, and this is another thing
For
in our
sure.
culture that we do these things for like entertainment purposes and for social experiences,
Boredom.
and and you sort of distance yourself from what it should be, you know, and I think you know, when you any time you do a drug, it should be with the understanding that you're taking part in a tradition almost. You know, you for thousands and thousands of years, other people like you have like held this, you know, mushroom in their hand and like, you know, wanted to know more about why they're here and what's around them and
Totally.
what is this all about, and you know, gone on this journey. And yeah, it can be fun, it can be entertaining, it can be, you know,
Horrifying.
trippy, it could be scary, but to me that's part of the journey. Like you know, and if you
Yeah.
Totally.
if you don't put yourself in that situation where you are forced to confront something that might be dark, that might be scary, or put yourself in a situation where you're not maintaining the strict control that you know, always normally do, it to me it can only help you as a person. You know, obviously there you can abuse things and, you know, do it for the wrong reasons, but I think, you know, there's become this stigma to drug use, and I think deep down at its roots it's a stigma against self-exploration. Like,
That's a very interesting way to look at it. I can see that.
and you see that in all aspects of our society. You know, we, especially in music and
Cell phones.
yeah, we're things are they
That's
have
why
to
people
pander,
are so
you know.
supportive of selfies. No, that's the
No,
that's
I
different.
mean, it's the same point that I'm making. It's like people. Well, yeah. I mean, you talk about drugs, but to me, it's the same thing. It's like they don't want to experience those things, or like experiencing uncomfortable things, but that can all happen in your daily life if you're
Yeah.
open to it too. Like, I'm not against drugs. I do drugs. I love drugs, but
Yeah, it's about changing your mindset, or
For sure.
you know, and anything that you use to do that, you know, it yields
Yeah.
the same result. Whether
Right.
it's, you know,
that's why I would like to take phones away, because that would be the ultimate for me. Like, just seeing people have to deal with. That would be the ultimate of that. Like, be uncomfortable. What's so fucking horrible?
I feel like I
about that?
remember
Like,
the time before cell phones so clearly, though. I was like a child. I definitely remember it.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
No.
was it,
it
real
was
uncomfortable for you?
No.
It was pretty real.
I mean, like, you just used
Life
to
was
go over
real.
people's house and knock on the door and see if they could play and shit.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
imagine if you just did that now. How weird that would be.
Yeah, you might get your ass
My
blasted.
neighbor
Yeah,
showed up
totally.
with cookies when I moved in.
Yeah. Like, can Roger come out and play?
But,
I'm
like-
whoa, what the fuck? Like, I'm in my underwear right now, you know?
Did you when you're this was recently that
No,
your
no.
neighbor showed
No,
up,
no,
or
that
this was back
that
in the
was
day?
Pre-cell
See,
phone
that
era.
would've
Okay,
been
okay.
creepy.
Yeah, nowadays, imagine somebody unsolicited comes to your door with
No.
cookies. You're gonna be
But see, we're
suspicious
now
of those
products
fucking
of that.
cookies.
Like, if somebody knocks on my door, I won't even answer that shit. I'll, like,
Yeah.
go hide.
Yeah,
you know?
you
I'm
just
like, I don't
ignore
wanna
it.
deal with that.
So
Like,
it's just more stuff. Just go away.
yeah. I go on my cell phone.
Yeah, distract yourself with something.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
you don't have
Totally.
to.
Well, it's just they must not be looking for me. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
expecting anyone right
If
now.
anybody who wants to see me, they have my number. They can
Yeah.
text me.
If it was really that important, they would have
would've
left
called.
a message.
You
All right, you know.
texted me, man.
Yeah, I'm avoiding your phone call. If it was that important,
Definitely.
leave a message.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But I
Why
mean,
would they call 10 times and not leave a message?
Yeah.
it must have been a mistake.
Totally. Wrong
But I don't
number.
know why do you think there is this fear against exploring these things? I mean, maybe you don't think there's a
I don't
fear,
think
but
it's conscious. It's just something that's
Right.
come out, and it's like that's kind of the whole thing. Like, I would even be okay with it if it was conscious, like, because if it was conscious, people wouldn't be doing it because they'd realize how much pieces of shit they're being.
Or what they're
they
losing.
they would fight it. You know what I mean? They'd be like, I'm only gonna be on my phone for like 15 minutes, or I'm just gonna check this and not like. But they don't realize it's just become a part of the culture, and it's become easy, and it's like this drug that people are taking. It's really
I
fucked
think
up. Like, you
people do
can't
it
even talk to
because
people anymore.
they're
Like,
sad or it's just easier. It's easier to do the
Right.
phone than it is to think about the problem that you have.
I
Yeah.
literally will have conversations with friends now, and you look up and you're having like you look up and they're like on their phone. You're like,
yeah,
should I stop talking? You're like, what happened? Like, it's fucking,
Yeah.
it's frightening.
it's weird. Like
It's
that,
really
that
weird.
etiquette. Like,
It's fucking rude.
yeah, I mean, when cell phones first, started becoming popular, there was somewhat of an etiquette. There were
Totally.
people that would.
You
That
wouldn't
my
talk
mom,
while
when she
placing
first-
a food order.
Right. When my mom first got a cell phone, like back when they were big, and she didn't even have it on most of the time. It was just like a lifeline, just in case.
Put it in your glove compartment.
Exactly.
If you crash, it's like it's
Exactly.
a beautiful thing. It's wonderful.
And to see that change over time, and there was a phase where it's like, okay, you have it on you, it's on, but we're at a restaurant, we're at the table, don't pull it out. If someone calls, just turn off the ringer, just
It'd be that important. Yeah.
and just keep talking to the person. But now we're getting to the point where like people are just
In text conversations.
But that's what
Yeah.
I mean. It's not conscious. You can't. It's not conscious. If it was like that, I doubt like you would do that. How rude could you be if you were really conscious of what you were doing? I don't know.
but
I think like even once my phone breaks, I'm pretty sure like I can't get anything but a smartphone at this point. Like, I don't
That's
think there's
true.
any way to get a non-smartphone.
I was at, since you brought that up, I was watching this Lisa Ling show on Oprah's network. She does a show called Our America or something like that, and she did a piece recently about people on the sex offender registry, and basically about like how you are essentially blacklisting someone for life, and in a lot of
sure.
circumstances, like how they got on there is like not always what you would expect. It's like not always
not
just
important
someone who's a
either.
child
Right,
molester.
right.
Like, if you're a teenager and someone accuses you of something,
right.
like this could fuck up your whole life. But anyway, long story short, there was this guy who had spent 18 years in prison. He's like somewhat autistic and has like Tourette's and shit like that. But he from his teenage years until probably his 30s, or he was in prison, and finally he was paroled and let out. And he violated his parole by simply having a cell phone that had a camera and internet access.
Huh.
That's it. He didn't do anything with them. Just having them violated his parole, and he
So
went back
either
to
had
prison.
have no cell phone or pretty much.
Yeah, and I
He's
was
violating
thinking
his
that,
parole.
like, well, what cell phone now, like, doesn't have a camera
Or
and
internet
doesn't go on the internet? Even if you don't have Wi-Fi, the shit still goes on the internet.
pretty
If you
wild.
have 3G or 4G or whatever,
Huh.
you can still go
Yeah.
on the internet. It's crazy.
It's yeah.
But you're right. I don't know if you can
I
even
don't think
get
so.
one.
Maybe like used somewhere you can
Yeah.
find one, but
I mean, you still see people that have, like, the old school, like,
but
Nokia
even this like,
bricks.
has
you
a
know?
phone and can go on the internet, like you just
Yeah.
said. It's like
Yeah.
it's just really not. Yeah.
I mean,
Camera.
I don't know about your
Post it on
past,
camera.
but if you're on the sex offender registry, don't let them know that you have that
For
phone.
sure.
Good to
But,
know. Good. Let me make some
but I mean-
phone calls.
Or don't make some phone calls.
Yeah.
Anyway. I mean, there's, I don't know, there's two parts of me, because on one hand, I'm like really into sci-fi and stuff like this, and so the idea of virtual realities and having worlds that are constructs that you can sort of jump in and out of, and like, to me, there's something about that that's really interesting and really fascinating, even though I know that it's not necessarily like a good thing for society. It's enabling, behavior that we probably shouldn't be enabling. But still, I'm like, there's something interesting about that.
You just have to use it properly. I mean, it's like that's everybody's instinct. That's what I think, is to do that because it's fun, it's easy. But even when I work on music now, I have to go offline.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I hit a block, like as soon as my mind skips or it's like, oh, this part isn't coming together, I'll literally just like be on Instagram, be like,
Yeah.
wait, I didn't even really consciously do that.
Yeah.
That's just like my instinct, like,
Yeah.
fuck it, I can't think of something. So I just go on, I'm like scrolling down. So I have to take myself offline.
Right.
But like people, you have to do that. I mean, you have
To
to
make that
separate
choice.
the two. And that's my fear, is like we're just going to get to this point where our attention spans are like zero. Can't even listen to one fucking song, even when you like it,
Yeah.
because you're just programmed to skip through it. Can't watch a video, like, yeah.
Do you think can you not put the genie back in the bottle, but like, is there a way to get people to like do these things responsibly? Like, how can you teach and this is a lot of why I ask people these questions, is because, and all these things that don't really seem like they're related, like that we're jumping around from these different topics that don't seem to be related. But to me, like, if you don't address all these instances of how this same mentality keeps popping up, it's never going to change.
For me, the way is like to basically create things or be somebody yourself that doesn't subscribe to them. And then, I mean, there's certain people who exist and you'll meet them in this day and age where it's like, so this person's so well read, this person's brilliant. Like, I love talking to them, and, or this person works so hard on music. And you'll find that those people that really reach higher levels, that really penetrate something, they're not part of that shit at all.
Yeah.
Like, because they realize that it has very little substance in their life. So that's the only way, is to become somebody like that. And once you can do that, I feel like at least you can affect some people like me, at least when I see that,
Yeah. I mean, but how do you reach the people who were never going to who that was never going to appeal to, because if you're aware enough and cognizant enough and, cerebral enough, where you live in your head to a certain extent where you can appreciate shit like that, we're not really talking to you, that's like you're preaching to the converted or whatever.
To the choir, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, how can we get the people who are like just going through their lives, like walking down the street on Instagram, or
We're
like,
gonna have to attack the cell phone towers.
you think that the only way is
Blow
to
'em
like,
up, decimate,
yank it away from people?
Go at start with Verizon, I think, and then we'll go at AT&T.
I mean, I think
Has to be a movement of some sort, I guess. Like, people will slowly, hopefully, become like
you can show them
socially
that
aware,
it's
just
not,
like organic food.
that it's not necessary. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, by posting, how are you going to post on Instagram to show that Instagram is not necessary? I think it's just about using it properly. I'm not like, I love the internet.
Yeah.
Especially for a band our size, it's so important. Like, it makes it so that we could release a song for no money, and somebody in fucking New Zealand can become our biggest fan. Like, that's amazing. That is beautiful. To me, that's why the internet exists. Like, it's just about using it, probably. It's just not being some mindless escape or anything, I think people are just becoming void of substance, like reading a book, like reading a full book. Like, the
Yeah.
statistics on that shit are insane. Like,
Yeah.
the amount of books that people, and it's just an attention thing.
Yeah.
That's what bothers
or
me the
even
most.
reading a
like,
whole article, You know,
listening
Just,
to
like,
a
make
full
it-
song.
yeah.
I don't think any we can track that shit, people. We see how
Yeah.
far you watch our YouTube videos.
Right.
Okay, that might be because you don't like it. Fair enough, but I guarantee you that's like for,
Yeah.
80% of all YouTube videos. It's like they don't get watched all the way through.
Yeah. It is crazy, and I can definitely understand a video like, the one we're making right now, where it's going to end up being over an hour and a half.
Yeah,
People aren't going to be able to make it through the whole
Commit-
thing all the
time
time.
commitment.
for sure.
You might, leave and come back later, etc. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's this phenomenon where, and the guys from Rin Tin Tiger were talking about this exact thing, where like you're hanging out with your friends, and they're like, "Oh, I gotta play you this song. Check it out," and they press play, and then like
Halfway
a
through.
minute in, they're like, "Okay, on to the next one." It's like, well, I wanted to hear that song. The song wasn't
or
over.
another friend takes over, like you
Yeah,
lose-
exactly.
They're distracted, and the next person takes
The most
over the
disturbing
iPod.
part is like when that starts to penetrate like how you make music or how people think you should make music. It's like,
Yeah.
the fuck? Like,
Well,
I can't even.
they're only gonna pay attention to a minute.
No,
so-
seriously. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can, like, we write a lot of songs where it's like it's slow to start and then like it's like a constant
Right.
build up. It's like nobody even makes it to the build up. So, God damn it.
You missed the best
That's it.
part.
We're done. We're not making any more music.
Just so you know, there's shotguns underneath the table if you need to commit suicide after this.
Yeah, right.
We've already thought about that.
God.
We're already
Please,
taking
we
care
get
of
way
it.
more depressing. We get way more
Yeah.
depressing.
But I don't know. Like these things about society are, I can't stop
I think
thinking
people
about
are
it,
eventually
you know?
gonna. Some people are gonna choose to live differently, and some people are not.
This is supposedly in this epoch we're culminating in the materialistic. This will be the most materialistic time for our history as humanity, and then we
Great.
will
Good
come
to
back
know.
around and we'll realize that it doesn't have any value. And this, like the whole internet and all that, is very materialistic.
If we
to me.
survive the global warmings.
It's good. We're painting a good picture here.
I always thought I was gonna die when I was young. I was just ready for the end.
Do you think that
That's
a lot
very
of people? I mean, do you think a lot of people in our generation feel that way? Like,
No, I think it's probably the opposite.
you think like they feel
I don't know.
I think that's what you're seeing. I think you're like, that's what I'm experiencing in our generation.
Oblivion
Like
or
people,
what?
no, people just not like understanding. You don't have that much time. Like you're only young and have this energy for a certain amount of time, and like you're spending that whole time wishy-washy trying to figure out what you want to do. Like this is the time to do what you want to do. And I think beforehand it was like either you didn't have that luxury, or you realized that, because we have too many distractions, we're just not going to get away.
We're very
from
comfortable as a nation in certain ways.
it.
yeah.
Comfortable.
I think that's one of the major problems, is that we are terrified of being uncomfortable, and like
Yeah.
almost everything we do is to like reinforce our own level of comfort, and
And
everything
we always
don't
instinctually
do.
choose that instead of.
Which
Just-
isn't, of course. Like,
course.
why wouldn't you? But
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Very good
But
reasons
when
why
it's
you
like,
would.
yeah,
That's hard,
the comfort
you know?
is the difference between being, like reading a whole article or being distracted. Like
Yeah.
once you get bored for half
that's
a
like
second.
that's like the minute aspect of it for
but
sure.
but that is the same exact thing.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we've become a culture that is so afraid of being in uncomfortable positions and dealing with uncomfortable realities. There's like the old martial arts saying that steel sharpens steel.
Right.
Like you have to
I heard that for the first
Go
time
up
the other
against-
day. I like that.
you have to go up against someone who is going to challenge you
Totally.
to get better. Like
That's why we
you're
moved to San Francisco.
Yeah, that's kind of our whole.
bringing it full circle. But I mean, it's I just like get caught up in thinking about how can we get out of this. Like, there's, and because the way that we would get out of it before is through art.
Yeah.
It's through people changing people's perceptions through novels or poetry or music.
It's still happening. I mean, I think the way to do it is actually be smarter than those people. Like, how can you? It's almost become a thing of like, how can you affect them without them even realizing it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what it's become, like, connecting to them and then like shocking them just enough so that they'll stay on board and, and continue going along with you, but that you're still just not like being part of exactly what's happening.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. I think one of the things that to me is sort of a hindrance to that is that, you and I can talk about this having, you've talked about your education growing up and being exposed to things in a certain way. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that, and I often think like, what would I be like if I didn't have the ability to see like duplicity or see multiple meanings in one thing?
Totally. Because
there are people out there, and I would be willing to judge that it's a majority of people that take everything at face value. They don't understand subtext and, hidden meanings and
they
metaphors.
Don't look for them,
Yeah, they're looking at something and seeing exactly what it is, not thinking about that it may represent something else. And what if you went through your entire life like that? It's, it's crazy to think about. But that's the reality that we're living in. And how can we expect people to really come to terms with all these things that we're talking about if they don't even know, like, that this song that you might think is about love could be about something completely different, It's, that's a huge tool that we're denying people.
I think about that all the time, and then I'm always, I don't know, I go between thinking that and then shifting back to the idea of like, I don't know, their reality could be just as trippy as mine, and I have really no idea what it's like, there could be like, I don't know, deep meaning in things that I don't see,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
There's also, I think,
I really feel like the majority of people are experiencing quite interesting, quite fascinating lives. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
But do they realize that they are?
I think lots of people struggle for self-realization. I really do.
Yeah. And that's one of the main themes in this discussion has
Absolutely.
been like,
I mean,
people are
what's the reason for life besides, maybe
But that's
self-realization,
also our
maybe
role
creation.
is to show people that, like, kind of give them something to look up to, or like, whatever you want to do is kind of possible in a way, or it's like, there's not many boundaries really when you get right down to it, like.
Yeah, we're definitely lucky in our childhood. I can't imagine a more idyllic childhood, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's, that's invaluable, I'm sure. But there's so many interesting stories out there.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to...
And maybe they don't have iPhones, like, so we don't hear the stories,
Or they don't have the ability, because of environment or, struggles, to have the luxury to sit back and think about their story and,
right.
Think of it as a complete narrative. And, because that's something that a lot of people don't have the luxury of, is like looking back on their life and thinking about, where one path might have led them, why they made a certain decision. A lot of people can't write their own story.
Yeah, there are times when I feel like I'm not writing it, and then there are times where I'm very conscious of it,
Is that allowed?
Oh, yeah. We're going to be wrapping it up pretty soon here anyways, but...
Let's talk about James while he's not here.
Well, I'm not familiar with, how you guys write songs, but are you both writing lyrics? Like, how does it play out?
We definitely share lyric writing a lot. I would say James initiates definitely like 85% of the material. When I say initiate, I mean he'll come up with a drum beat, usually to start with, or a guitar riff, or a melody line, and he'll start playing with that on various different programs like Pro Tools or Live or Reason, mostly Pro Tools. And then we'll just start, he'll bring it to me, and maybe I'll write a melody, maybe I'll write lyrics, maybe he'll already have something. And that's where we start to collaborate. And then when we have like a big enough piece, a big enough chunk that like it's worth sharing, we'll share it with the band. And then James often has the ideas. He's very good at plans and directions and goals, and he inspires us all in that way. And then he'll be like, hey, I want you to listen to this part and play over it. And like our guitarist AJ will just play for hours and hours, and then maybe it'll be like a couple days of him doing that, and James will be like, do this certain part. And yeah, it goes like that a lot of the time. Other times, like Theo, our keyboardist, will come up with some riffs on the keyboard, and him and I will work on like a melody and stuff like that.
Well, being able to look at James as an outsider and sort of pick apart what he's putting out there, what he's exposing of himself.
Yeah.
What is he exposing of himself? Like, what do you get out of the art that he creates? What does it say about him that he might not even realize, but you are picking up on? While he's not here, let's talk about him.
Let me think about that. He's a very thoughtful person. He puts a lot of thought into things.
Yeah.
So he'll analyze it from all different sides. So often I'll jump to a conclusion pretty fast, and he'll take more time, and he'll come up with something that's more exciting because he's spent more time really in it. He's a leader in that way, I would say. He's also, it's funny, but it's actually really hard to come up with ideas and to believe strongly enough in them that you stick to them when other people doubt them, or you do that, and he's always done that a lot. And I think that's why we're all, so invested in the band.
Yeah, I mean, you always need someone who's like driving the train, But that's one of the things that's really difficult about being in a band, as opposed to just sort of being a solitary artist, is that it's really fucking hard to find other people that are going to be as dedicated as you are to, to your own art.
Finding a real partner.
Yeah.
It's like being in a relationship, as our drummer Patrick likes to tell us all the time.
Yeah. It's very, very, very difficult, and it's something that you can kind of learn sometimes, but I don't know. I am more of like a solitary kind of person when I do art. Everything is like, I don't want to have to depend on somebody else.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because nobody is going to be as enthusiastic about this as I am, and having to drag somebody along is really not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where it just kind of gels with the person, and it's magical, and you come up with things that you never would have come up with on your own. But it's not easy, and it's not always right. Sometimes it's a very, it's like sheer providence that you meet each other and are able to, be in that realm where you can even realize that you have that connection.
Yeah.
And I think it's also something that I love about being in a band, is having that connection with these people.
Do you
Yeah, it's
think
amazing.
that if you had not met the people that you met, would you have continued on just doing stuff yourself? Like,
I think we would have just kept going until we met the right people. I mean, like, being in a band has always been very, very important, and the idea of a band, I think that's also what you see is, like, it's very easy just to do. It's so much easier to do it by yourself, you know?
yeah,
But you miss out on so much, and it's so much, just like a relationship, it's awesome to be able to share with people and have different experiences and see it through different people's eyes.
And I think that with art in general, when you can reach out and collaborate with other artists that are as inspiring as you have so much more opportunity. And that's what we're finding right now. Even if we're not connecting to a huge music scene in San Francisco, we're seeing the potential of just the art scene in general. There's a lot of incredible visual artists
right.
here,
Yeah.
which is exciting for me.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can start to wrap this up. We've been going for a little while now. I want to thank you guys for coming down and taking the time to sit down and ramble on about shit with me. It's always interesting to hear different perspectives on things and sort of get into the mind of people and see how they work. And, you know, it's not easy for people to put themselves out there. So I appreciate you guys coming down here.
Thanks for having
Um,
us.
Like we mentioned earlier, you guys are playing a benefit show in Santa Barbara. That'll already have happened by the time this comes out. This is coming out on the 30th. Do you have anything else coming up that you guys want to promote?
I'm playing the first at Milk Bar
Okay.
with
all
some
right.
cool, awesome bands. One band from Portland called On, AAN, and then a band we've played with before called Religious Girls from
From Oakland.
Oakland. The awesome, amazing band.
Yeah, they blew me away when we
They're so-
opened.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy.
They're
Yeah.
insanely
some
good.
great
yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
They played maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago at
Great
the Music
American.
Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a crazy band.
They're a crazy band. I don't think anybody's doing anything quite like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can really say is crazy.
Crazy.
Guys.
Crazy.
Like,
It's so fitting for the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
feel like
for
the
sure.
crazy is strong here.
It is pretty fucking crazy out here.
I've
Getting
been
less
wearing
so, you know, unfortunately.
That's why you gotta love bands like Religious Girls.
Yeah. We would definitely
it.
want
They
to go
wear it on their
out
sleeve.
and support crazy.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
with all the like,
Which is awesome that they played Great American. It's fucking sick.
yeah. I mean, with all the like, no, I mean, it's, I love that shit. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
with all the utter shit out there, you know, and all the manufactured crap and all the like commodified music and even like the machine of like, you know, the old music industry where, you
Yeah.
know, bands are still getting, you know,
Still exists.
propped up by labels and, you know, touring and
Well,
all
it's
this,
there, yeah.
you know, that's still out there. So to see bands that are doing interesting things outside of that and able to, you know, bring themselves in a unique way.
They have the best Facebook page out of anybody that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's
If you-
brilliant.
Even if you hate the music, you should subscribe to them on Facebook because it's the best thing ever.
It's like
Just random.
Vice magazine and a
Oh my.
Facebook page. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate people doing weird shit, and I think we should celebrate people doing weird shit
Yeah.
because, you know, if it was all Britney Spears and like, you know,
Also because
Rihanna,
it's
then-
awesome, like, because
yeah.
you can, it's weird and still, like, I don't know, I
Still
relate to it
powerful,
in my
yeah.
own way. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we
Like,
saw
they
them, we
said
were
it.
literally like, just standing there like,
yeah.
whoa, like what the fuck is happening? Yeah. Nice, we're fans.
Well, August 1st at Milk Bar. What day of the week is that? Do you know?
Friday, I think.
All right. Well, shit. Hopefully you're going out, so why not go out to Milk Bar and check out Yasu Benedict. Thank you to Lily and James for coming down and hanging out with us. Be sure and check them out. Go check out their website.
Instagram.
You go right to the website and a cool video plays. It's full screen. It's beautiful. And also check out the video that they did in preparation for the Slim show that they recorded, like, what, at a school gymnasium or something. It's really fucking good, so go check it out. It's on our blog if you want to go find it that way, or it's also on their YouTube page. And go like them on fuck Facebook.
Yeah.
Go like them on Instagram,
Twitter.
you know, follow
Real
their
world.
Twitter, go to their shows.
Like us in the real world. We are Yasu Benedict.
Show some love, people.
Wishing
Which reminds me, you should subscribe to our podcast. Holy shit. Between You, Me, and Jose, go find it on iTunes. Press subscribe on YouTube. Comment on this video. Show us some fucking love. Don't just stare at your goddamn cell phone and like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway. Alright, guys. That's it for tonight. Come check us out next week. We're here every Wednesday. So, thanks again. Good night.